everybody. Welcome to another episode of the All Tens podcast. I'm Clay. He's Josh. We're EOS implementers, and we talk to entrepreneurs every day and help them get the most out of their business and their life. And we're doing a little series on the 5 biggest frustrations that we hear when we're talking to entrepreneurs. And the topic for today is hitting the ceiling. And so tell me, Josh, what that means, because it's not clear. What does hitting the ceiling mean?
Yeah, hitting the ceiling is where growth has sort of stalled out on you. What was working before is not working now. And it's something that's going to continue to happen. And another way that I explain this is you've actually succeeded when you hit a ceiling. And emotionally, a lot of times, for entrepreneurs I talk to, it feels like failure. And what I try to convince them is that, well, the graph was still up and to the right? You went from A to B, and now all you're getting is feedback that your current people, processes, and systems that you have in place have reached a limit. And that's it. And that's as far as those people and processes are going to take you. And now change is required for us to get to the next level. Businesses don't grow in a linear fashion so much as it's fits and starts, where we accelerate to the next ceiling, so on and so forth. So that's a little bit more context about that. As far as surprisingly, I have an experience shared with a client that I had. And at first, when I met them, I wondered why I was in the room. They had been in business for over 20 years, tens of millions of dollars in annual revenue, beautiful facility. And yet, when I talked to them further about their business, they really had been stuck on a revenue number for about 2 to 3 years. And somehow it just kind of plateaued off. And everyone's got that look in their eye as if to say, well, I don't know why it just didn't keep going and what's wrong. But they're a strong team with the wherewithal to say, okay, well, let's go get some help and let's figure some things out.
How did you help them? Okay, well, let me ask the question I've been asking. How does the story end, or are we in progress?
We're in progress, but they're making great progress. And indeed, with this particular client, their quarterly's coming up. And when I called them the other day to say, hey, are we all prepped, ready to go? Is the team ready to rock? And they said, we just had our best quarter in the history.
You know what I'd call that, Josh? I'd call that a happy ending, my friend.
I'd call it a happy ending. Now, I know that we've still got more work to do because I know what's on that VTO and the very high standards and goals that they have set for themselves. But with this particular organization, as we began to dig in and say, okay, well, what's really required for you all to get to the next level? Because obviously some things are working. And I think they had simply grown to a point to where then process was really needed in this organization. And when you think about it, when there's 2 people on staff, pretty easy to keep up with things, right? You get to 10 people, still okay. Like, we understand kind of what everyone's job is, how they're contributing things. You get up over 100, 150 people. Now there's a lot of moving parts. And at that leadership team level, they don't understand all the ins and outs day in and day out of what's happening within those other levels of the organization. And now things have frayed over time, and some people are doing it their way. Other people are doing it how they were trained, but they weren't trained by the same people. And so really just kind of simplifying it and bringing it all back and saying, listen, here's the core things that we do. Here's that process. Here's who does what, when. Here's how work comes to you. Here's how work leaves you, was a nice way of being able to simplify that and really bring it back in. And, certainly seems to be working for them. Again, no silver bullets here, but progress being made, and it's showing up on the P&L.
Let me ask a question. So when we talk about hitting the ceiling, when we're implementing EOS, we talk about 5 leadership abilities, and that's, hint, hint, probably another kind of series of podcasts that we might do. But we talk about simplify, delegate, predict, systemize, and structure are the 5 leadership abilities. So you're saying, like, for these folks, their systems just weren't keeping up with their growth. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Indeed. Certainly they'd been able to effectively delegate, but in more of a loosely structured way. So here I would say there's certainly a simplification involved in that. Having to tap into that leadership ability, but systemizing, really screaming.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. The when I talk with entrepreneurs, normally the only reason that they're like reaching out is because something isn't working the way they want it to be working, right? They've kind of gotten stuck somewhere. And I think one thing that it's obviously easy to look at look at financial reporting and see that revenue is flat or whatever. But sometimes I think entrepreneurs feel worse if maybe it's not the revenue that's stuck, but they just feel like stuck in some other way. And it's important to recognize that stuckness can be just them. It could be just one particular team that kind of hasn't grown with the rest of the company, is kind of stuck in doing it the old way or whatever. Could be the whole company. But like that hitting the ceiling idea, that kind of feeling like what used to work isn't working anymore, can happen in lots of different ways, and has different symptoms depending on how it's happening, right?
100%. And I'll reiterate, my hope for everyone is that they can see the progress that they made and then simply own the ceiling and say, okay, great, I got there. Let's not despair. Let's progress. Let's regroup. Let's sharpen the saw. Let's get better. Let's break through. That's my hope for everyone.
I think we should have a drinking game where every time one of us says 100%, we take a drink of like tea, maybe of tea or coffee. Anyway, so let's, before we wrap this episode up here, Joshy, that was a great share and I think really relevant to our listeners. What's a nugget? What's something that like people could leave, like one little soundbite people could leave with? You're really good at these, so no pressure.
I feel like my best share I'd already given during the pod, which is, the ceiling just represents a new limit and is calling for you to step your game up and get better and break through.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to add one, which is simply that hitting the ceiling is inevitable. This is also a callback to something you said earlier, but hitting the ceiling inevitably happens when you're doing the right things.
Mm-hmm.
So don't feel bad. Everyone goes through it. You just got to put the boots on and get to work.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for joining us once again on your favorite streaming platform. Don't forget to rate the episode 1 to 10 on all 10s. We're always striving for all 10s all the time. We welcome your feedback, and if there's any other topic you'd like for us to address, leave it down in the comments. And until next time, we'll see you, Clay.
Go Tar Heels. Bye.